supporting our fellow citizens with kindness and empathy, recognizing that together we can overcome any adversity. Grant us the strength to endure, the courage to face our fears, and the clarity to see the light that remains, even when clouds of uncertainty may gather. Inspire our new leaders to be champions for the vulnerable and advocates for those whose voices are often silenced. May they pursue policies that promote the well-being of all, seeking to build bridges that will foster unity and belonging. As we stand witness to this inauguration, we hold fast to our faith in the goodness of each of us and the possibility of change. We trust that with your guidance, O God, our nation can move forward to a future filled with promise, prosperity, and understanding. And finally, we lift our hearts in gratitude for the beloved parents of President Trump. Without Mary and Fred Trump, this day would never be the miracle that has just begun. From their place in heaven, may they shield their son from all harm by their loving protection, and give him the strength to guide our nation along the path that will make America great again. Let us go forth now with these words of President Trump's emblazoned on our hearts. As long as we have pride in our beliefs, courage in our convictions, and faith in our God, then we will not fail. We stand tall, we stand proud, because we are Americans, and Americans kneel to God, and to God alone. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for our national anthem. What a building we have at the twilight's last gleaming. Put the sharps and bright stars in the path of our flight. On the ramparts where once was the land is free. And again, and resting in
He looks like he can have an orgasm. Or like he's trying to poop.
Biden?
No, the singer.
Ladies and gentlemen, please.
He ain't no Pavarotti. He is
As we're
good.
getting into the winding down moments of this inauguration ceremony, we return to our table to talk about some of what we've just seen.
While the president and official party depart the platform.
So as they make their departure, we just have to mention an unplanned part of this ceremony that took place a few moments ago. There was a pause right before Carrie Underwood was to sing. It seems there was some kind of problem with the accompaniment, the band that was supposed to play along with her. And so, yes, spontaneously, she sang a cappella. with a few scattered voices. She said, "You're going to have to help me out," to the crowd there. People did sing along with her, but pretty incredible that she was able.
We should also point out that during the singing of the national anthem, we saw the American flag flying at full staff here in Washington, D.C. That's been a bit of a controversy because with the death of President Carter, flags were ordered to be waved at half staff.
And they will return to half staff tomorrow, but Speaker Johnson said that they should be at full staff today for the inauguration.
Because some state houses, some governors had already made that decision on their own.
It's 30 days in honor of a president who passes away, and it has not yet been 30 days. And because the speaker has control over the grounds of the House, he was able to elevate the flags. And they, as I understand it, will go back down to half staff tomorrow.
So I guess the next big moment is going to be the departure of President and First Lady Biden.
As we're taking a look at this, you heard the cheers and the applause in the room, and you see, I think that was, there he is, President Biden, former President Biden now, of course, making his way out of the Capitol and leaving Washington. We've talked about this legacy moment for him. He has reflected on that, about this, this leaving of the place that he so sought for so many years. And he has said in recent interviews that he hopes that his legacy will be one that is remembered as somebody who was able to be a leader on the world stage, somebody who was able to bring people together.
He's leaving Washington, and he's been in Washington for 50 plus years, an entire life devoted to public service. He will exit and be out on the east front of the Capitol where Marine One will be waiting for him to take him to Joint Base Andrews, where he will fly on what looks like Air Force One, but will be called Air Force One Special Air Mission, and we'll take the former first couple away.
And did he? I mean, you have to wonder: did he ever imagine his political career would end the way it has ended? Been removed by his own party from the ticket, even the final acts today, pardoning members of his own family.
I don't think anyone, Lester, could have imagined that his political career would end this way, because he is such a creature of Washington, and to have some of his closest allies for decades come to him and say, "Sir, you cannot win, and if you continue to stay in this race, you will drag down the rest of the party," had to be painful, had to be very difficult. He has acknowledged as much now publicly, and that decision, the timing of it, will be debated for years to come.
I know I'm a bit late, and I'm sorry for the excessive mobility.
This week from the Oval Office, and a lot of people
Or if I'm
were
giving y'all
expecting him to tick through those
freaking
50+ years that he served in
dizziness,
Washington. Instead,
nausea,
yes, he did
and
talk
many
about
more
his legacy. He
stuff
also
that's not the
warned
deal.
that an oligarchy is taking root
But
in this
the whole
country. So
plan
those were some of his parting
was I
words.
should have
sorry,
thought about
He says publicly he addresses his
He's
staff.
a lucky
Watching these
president.
departures, we want to check in with Craig Melvin, who was in Emancipation Hall for the ceremony. That was the overflow.
Donald Trump might not be the best at
For
everything.
This inauguration
but
ceremony. Who were some of the attendees that you saw?
He's got a
and how
beautiful
was it
wife.
received?
You know, Ms. Manna,
Good
as we
looking
watch these
kid.
images, we can tell you that President Trump and the First Lady, they're
Sometimes I
actually
just don't like the way he comes
here.
across, the way
They'll
he
come
talks.
down to Emancipation Hall, the President,
But
and Vice
he has
President
some
Vance, they will be addressing the crowd that's assembled here. Again, we're
He's
talking
not
about
an idiot.
roughly 1,000 or so folks. That should happen here. Total
wow,
roughly
I
next
don't know
10, 15
Kamala
minutes or so.
Harris.
But
But
there was
they know
lots of applause down here. There were lots of cheers during the president's address. They started.
I don't know, that might
cheering
just
when
be
the
her
president
escort.
declared that the golden age of America starts
They're all the
today.
man.
To put America first.
That's
They
what escorts do.
applauded
No.
wildly. Even standing applause.
I don't know for a
President
fact.
Trump said that
Yeah,
I
look
was
it up.
saved by God to make America great again.
I'm
That was
I'm
the line that
anti-government.
got the most sustained applause. So here's the thing.
Too much government.
Over the next 3 hours or so here in the Capitol, there are going to be a number of different events. Again, as I mentioned, he'll come down, he'll address the crowd. And then after that, there will be that congressional luncheon that's always, it's become a part of the inaugural ceremony. And then there'll be some gift giving, we're told. There'll be some gifts given.
Yeah, that's him.
Congressional leadership, some flags that have been thrown at the
Yeah,
Capitol,
it's just,
some
her husband.
swearing in photos. And at some point,
he's 60
we're
years
told,
old.
this is actually going to be pretty interesting to see, because we're standing right now. They're going to have to get everyone out of this room, and at about an hour or so later, the president is going to do this first honors Again, it's
He's roaring.
akin to a reviewing of the troops.
Should have grabbed
Call it that because there's apparently some military
GoPro
distinction. But this first honors
thing.
is
Could put my
is
phone
going to
there
make
so
the deal
it's easier for me to hold
each
into
member
it.
of the
What's
On
over?
the little
branches of
cheeks.
the military will be represented: the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Coast Guard.
It's over there,
Marines,
you're
and
at.
of course, the
It's
Space
done.
Force as well. We're told about 150 members of the military serve in those branches. It's going to take about 15 minutes. And at that point, the president will then leave the Capitol. But we're buckled up here and ready to go for at least another 2.5 hours at the Capitol.
Okay, stand by there, Craig. We'll be back with you as we watch these departures just past the top of the hour now, 1 o'clock Eastern in Washington. President Trump just sworn in as the 47th President of the United States.
We heard a performance a moment ago of the national anthem as the inauguration ceremony inside the Capitol Rotunda appears to be winding down. People are now exiting, but the president still has a very packed day ahead, as Craig noted.
Yeah, he just laid out President Trump will head toward the Capital One Arena in Washington after this business here at the Capitol. It has turned into a viewing site and an overflow room of sorts for his supporters after today's ceremony had to be moved indoors due to frigid weather here in Washington. Before that, he's also expected to sign a bunch of executive orders. There will be a signing ceremony at the Capitol, but also further signing.
Tell me why that guy looked like a mixture between Nicky 30 and Kyle.
Michael Michael, thank you for being with us. I want to get your first impressions of what the president laid out as to the state of America now and where he wants to take it.
Well, I think the way to look at this, Lester and Savannah, is to compare it to recent inaugurals and recent inaugural addresses in modern times. And you have to say that the sweep of his ambitions, you heard it stated today, perhaps more than ever before, in foreign policy, to change America's role, change the way various elements of, and also change American culture and society.
Hey, Michael, unfortunately, your audio is breaking up, so I think we're going to take a moment and let that get sorted out.
Bush, man.
We're here in the room here.
I am President Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
They're all adults now.
Best president ever. Along with
One of
his.
the best presidents. John F. Kennedy, that was a
Appeared to
great
extend a hand to
president.
Hillary Clinton. and
Yeah,
maybe
but his
President
wife
Clinton
was
as well.
also
That's
amazing
an
too
unusual
because
was
his wife.
as
His wife.
Michelle Obama?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she did a lot.
Like they both
Well,
tag
happens,
team,
we did not
so
see
like
this
he would
4 years
handle
ago,
all
because
the
Donald Trump left
important
for
stuff in the world, and then she would handle
earlier in the day when he was still
to
in
make
office,
sure
he did have a
everyone was
caveat.
eating
And let's just
healthy,
note while
eating
this there is
right.
a statement
and-
piece
So
of
they
this
did a
traditional
lot
events here, the incoming Trump administration, the new Trump administration, they are off and running. The socials are now flipped over to the 47th president, their social media sites, whitehouse.gov. They are already having staff at work in place to initiate all of the things that you heard the president lay out in that speech. You've got a number of changeovers already. The TSA administrator, according to our reporting here at NBC News, has now stepped aside or been fired. You have also a new, the acting FBI director as well has stepped down. The work is already being done. And by the way, the legal challenge is already filed now, several against that new Department of Governmental Efficiency, which the president has talked about that Elon Musk will lead.
I'm guessing that coat check is closed here. Because the first filling out Sam's coats on a pretty shitty day.
I'm excited.
Well, to the point that Howard
There's
makes,
never anything wrong with
first of all,
change.
what
I'm
we
excited
heard
to see
from,
what
President Trump was
what's
a
to come.
list of the robust
All we can do is think
agenda
positive.
that he
We can't-
wants
we
to
can't
start
think
working on
negative about
today,
it.
so much so that I had some Republicans texting me saying, this has the markings to some extent of a State
He
of the
got
Union address. And look at
pardoned
the
or
optics inside
something
the
from
room.
his
Republicans standing to cheer,
from
the
his
Democrats
illegal
seated in
activities per
some
se.
moments. Former President Biden, now former Vice President Kamala Harris, with stern expressions, as he was
So-
quite critical of their record on various
President
issues.
Trump making his own news, saying the Gulf of Mexico will now be referred to as the Gulf of America, saying he's renaming, taking Mount McKinley back. It was Denali. You could have an argument about him starting at Denali, becoming Mount McKinley, back to Denali. Well, he wants it to be called Mount McKinley once again as members of the Supreme Court depart. And we're starting to see now what we will, a departure of President Biden and President Trump and Melania Trump there to usher them off to their departure by helicopter and then off to Andrews Air Force Base, where by tradition there's a ceremony and sometimes staffers gather there, Biden staffers. We've got Ryan in the East Front. So Ryan, I don't know if we've got a vantage point here. Ryan Nobles, our Capitol Hill correspondent.
Yeah, that's right, Savannah. And we can see the current president, the newly inaugurated President Donald Trump, escorting the former President Joe Biden out here onto the East Front, where Joe Biden will ultimately get on the Marine One helicopter and depart to Joint Base Andrews. Now, this was a tradition that was started back in 1977 when Gerald Ford left Washington for the final time aboard Marine One. Traditionally, outgoing presidents would leave the Capitol by train. In fact, they would sometimes just walk from the East Front over to Union Station and get on aboard a train to travel home. That's how many presidents did before Ford. But once this new tradition was instituted, this became the regular. Of course, this did not happen 4 years ago because Donald Trump chose not to participate in the inauguration activities. Instead, Vice President Pence came all by himself and was walked out by then the newly inaugurated Vice President Kamala Harris. They were in masks at the time, if you remember, because that was the height of COVID. And then Mike Pence left in a car. So this is an opportunity here to demonstrate the peaceful transfer of power as you see the new president speaking to the former president and speaking to Vice President Harris as well. It is bitterly cold out here right now. The east front of the Capitol often becomes a wind tunnel just by the way that it is configured up here on Capitol Hill. And the wind is whipping through this part of Washington right now. That wind will kick up even more once the rotors of Marine One start rotating in order to lift Marine One off of the east front of the Capitol and then take the Bidens over to Joint Base Andrews.
Here's the first departure. We just saw the goodbyes there with Kamala Harris
That's right.
and her husband, Doug Emhoff, being greeted by President Trump, who, of course, prevailed in the election, and then a big warm hug from the Bidens and Dr. Biden. And so the next departure will be the Bidens themselves.
And we should point out when the former president gets on that aircraft, it will no longer be Marine One for this mission. It'll have a different call sign.
Nighthawk 46.
Oh, there we go. Nighthawk 46.
And much has been made of the relationship between Harris and Emhoff and the Bidens, and we really saw a demonstration, a very physical one there with that warm embrace of the closeness. Their political lives were intertwined by the decision Joe Biden made to name her as his running mate and then to serve with her as vice president. And now that relationship takes a new turn. We don't know what Kamala Harris and her future will look like. We know that the former president, now Joe Biden, and Dr. Jill Biden will be traveling to Santa Barbara County and spending some time in Santa Ynez at a private home there to have a little rest and vacation.
It's the same area, I believe, that they spent time after the Democratic convention back in the summer. Another difficult moment, presumably, of course, for President Biden and former President Biden, and the former First Lady there has had and expressed publicly great frustration with the way that she felt her husband was treated over the summer by the Democratic Party. Talking about, for example, former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi saying we were friends for 50 years. Pelosi seen in many ways as one of the architects ultimately forcing out Joe Biden to get Kamala Harris into that race.
And leaving the cold of Washington is probably, there are many metaphors to that.
Yes, but I think that it does speak to, first of all, how powerful these images are. Images that I think the country is to some extent hungry for. These images of bipartisanship, the peaceful transfer of power, very different images than the ones we saw 4 years ago. And again, the question, what will become of the Democratic Party now?
And it's just the word is class. It's a classy thing to do.
Yes.
It's classy to come to your former rival's inauguration. It's classy to see them off. It's classy to have, a Marine One with a special designation. It's what we expect and hope and aspire to in this country, which actually brings us directly to John Meacham, presidential historian who has done some work for President Biden and writing speeches and so forth. But what are your thoughts, John, as we see these images, but also looking back at the inaugural address we just heard?
Well, let's start with President Biden for a moment. This is 53 years of federal service. that is coming to an end. This would be as if someone who had been elected to the United States Senate when Harding won the presidency had left when Joe Biden was a freshman senator. President Biden's life has been marked by extraordinary tragedy and extraordinary twists of fate. It brought him to the pinnacle of power at a late season in his life. He believes deeply in the American experiment for all of its imperfections. Many of the imperfections he embodies because he, like all of us, is a fallen, frail, and fallible person. But through war and peace and prosperity and hard times and the ups and downs, not just of politics, but of life, losing so many members of his youngest wife, his daughter, in 1972, losing his son, Bo, some years ago, and yet enduring and believing in public service. Believe that public service, as President Kennedy said, could be a noble profession. And
Pretty soon we'll be able to say whatever the fuck we want, whatever we want.
As we begin this interrupted era. It's not a new era, really, isn't it? It's just it's Act 2. I will say, Savannah, as you said, I'm a friend of President Biden's. I've helped him when I could. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I believe very much in the constitutional order and in the norms that we've seen try to be reestablished today. I will say that was the single most partisan inaugural I think that I know of in American history. Even the invocations tended to be partisan. I am a person of faith, as are many of you. I'm an Episcopalian. I am a Christian. I'm an observant Christian. But I will say this: when religion is used to divide and to exalt one side over the other, we are in a place where we need to take care. We should be praying together for our nation. We should be praying together for our fellow countrymen. We should not be praying for certain electoral college outcomes or certain policy shifts and certain personalities to prevail.
John,
so I think,
when you say all that and characterize it as a highly partisan speech, do you see anything in Donald Trump that signals that this time will be different? That lessons learned, and we all experiences teach us all lessons. Do you see that here?
I hope. I live in hope, like all of us. I don't. I think it was a speech of Trumpian superlatives. And look, 49.9% of the country that decided to vote chose this path. And I'm not being sentimental or mawkish when I say I genuinely pray for his success, because that is the country's success, which is a phrase of George Herbert Walker Bush's when he handed power to Bill Clinton. In many ways, President Trump is the fullest manifestation.
When you divide the country by calling it Democrat or Republican,
but they can also
that's dividing the country in the
and
first place.
so we are now in a position
Or putting a wall around
Well, I mean, that's
and blocking people out.
In many ways,
well, you can understand that's a little bit different. Now, if people,
You don't do that to Hispanics. You don't do that to freaking Chinese Americans.
because they're not on the border, they're across the sea. The water is
ever had the impact. I mean, as President Biden leaves,
when they come into this country, they have to come in legally.
Politically. That's not to lionize him, but as a practical matter.
And I strongly agree with
he
that.
has defined our politics.
If you're coming into the country, come in legally.
To define our
Do the paperwork,
he has
come in
defined
legally.
the Supreme Court. He has
If you're coming in
many
illegally,
ways cultural shifts,
and you're
and
stealing
as a
people's
country,
benefits,
we will be either embracing or pulling back.
And that's what a lot of people are doing.
Personality we saw very much on display today.
For some of the people who actually need
Marine aircraft used for the part of the presidential fleet now airborne.
elders
your
and
last look at
disabled people
Washington
and
D.C.
stuff like that.
as first couple.
What can you imagine? the conversation that might be taking place. It's a moment where the images match
It's not
the
okay for
reality,
people to just,
even physically and
oh, I'm gonna
leaving,
cross this
of course,
border
politically,
and
Washington
I'm
as
gonna
well.
take
And
your
then there
money.
are those
Still
waiting in
free.
Emancipation Hall at this hour for a visit from President Trump and perhaps Melania Trump as well. These were people who were able to attend inside, but not in the rotunda itself. So
Maybe
this was the overflow
come
room,
in legally,
and they
get a
will
proper
get a
job,
visit from President Trump
work
in
and
just
earn
a
the
moment. There's
benefits,
talk of perhaps some signing of executive orders and actions right there.
and you're
And as
deserving.
is tradition, there's a luncheon that the Presidential Inauguration Committee puts on every year. Didn't do it in
Because
2021
actually, they're
because of
stealing your tax
the
money.
COVID pandemic, but it's back on for this year.
I haven't done
And
my
then
taxes
later,
in years.
we'll get over to Capital One Arena.
I found my
instead of the
W-2.
parade because
A
of the
couple of
whole
my
They're
W-2s.
stealing
orders of
your
power there.
money.
But Tom Young's
You
there.
pay
We can
taxes.
also
Every
check in with
check,
Tom.
you're
We do
paying
expect
taxes.
executive orders to be signed there as well.
They're pulling
The
out.
president is
Yeah, that's why it's
When
never.
illegal people come in,
That's why
and
it's
they get
never the full
benefits,
vet.
they're taking your money that you put into the government
as soon as today.
for your future,
That is correct, Savannah. There's a desk
for
that
your
you put out
disability,
earlier
for
in
your
our chair
SSI,
of the
for your
inauguration. Just over
benefits.
my right shoulder, there's a desk where we expect President Trump to sign some of those executive orders right here in the Capital One Arena. He had a rally here last night. Again, he's doing a two-for, if you will, for his supporters. The atmosphere in here is the complete opposite, if you will, to sort of the take that we just heard from John Meacham. The people in here were completely enthralled, as you can imagine, with that inauguration speech that they heard there. Some of the loudest applause lines came when they said they were going to declare cartels as foreign terrorist organizations, that there was going to be a national energy emergency.
Yeah,
Drill, baby, drill. And the loudest applause, I will say, came
when
when they
I
said there are only two genders, male and female.
when I
This
stepped
place
outside this morning,
erupted in
and
standing ovation. I also want to point out
when
the
you
temperature
went
here,
to soak in
when
the
Bidens were
tub,
leaving that helicopter, the crowd here started to chant
like
that
before I
song, na,
even
na, na,
lit
hey,
one of
hey,
those,
goodbye. So
I
there's a
was
little
already
quote-unquote
puking it
junkie, if you will,
up
on the Bidens over here.
the
That's the
pizza
atmosphere
rolls.
because remember, these are all like the diehard
I
Trump
just ordered
supporters that are out
McDonald's.
here. And way to the cold there now.
No, I know.
Stuff like that.
I know. I'm not talking about today, but I was talking
We'll be down
about like
later.
I don't know
President will be there. Right now,
what's
he's about
going
to
on
enter
with me,
Emancipation Hall,
but like
where people have been
all of
waiting
a
all morning
sudden I
for
just
their moment
like
with President Trump, and they're
upchuck
about to get it.
and it
If you're one
didn't
of the 3 million people
feel
who visit the
right
Capitol every year,
and
chances
it
are pretty
made
high that
made
you
no
pass through
sense
this
for me
area. It's the lower
because
level of the
usually
Capitol Visitor Center,
you know
which was
pizza
constructed in
rolls,
2008
burritos,
so
and
that
stuff
there are
like that
people waiting to see
will
if they
go
will
all the
hear
way down and
another version, if
it'll
you will,
come
of the
out, you know,
president's
as
speech during the
Yeah.
What do you
what's
see
it called?
here?
Not extract,
Just
but
moments ago,
what's the
we
technical
saw a number
term
of
for it?
folks take to the stage. Speaker Mike Johnson, they're about to speak.
Like
we're
it'll
told
just
that the
Since we're
march
trending
of the
and
president
everybody's
will be
hearing
roughly
it,
10 minutes in length.
they don't want to hear about your shit.
There, we're
oh.
told that the march is also going to be unscripted. So this will be
Well, I mean,
the
everybody
newly elected
poos.
president of the
Everybody
United
pees.
States speaking off the cuff. So we're told 10 minutes. But you all, we've all been doing this long enough to know that probably means a little bit longer than 10 minutes. These are folks who have been here all morning. But we also, for the last 10 minutes or so, a number of other folks who were previously in the rotunda have made their way down. But we're told President Trump is literally making the walk down the stairs right now. He'll be joined by the vice president as well.
At every opportunity, we'll be looking to see if we'll be signing executive orders or being clarifying some of them.
She had surgery. You can tell. You see the scar mark on her knee.
You know that
She got to be careful.
you know President Biden right before
And that's
he
why
gave up his
it's
office,
quite possible we will see
he signed
a number of different
pardons for his
venues
whole
for him
family
to sign these executive orders and how
for whatever might come against whatever Trump might
he
do.
signed anything.
You know,
It was a big production.
try to
And
go up
so I
against
would
them.
anticipate the same type
So
of
which is smart. He did pre-party.
Yes.
Just in case we want to try to retaliate.
And often it's a gift to pass the pens. For all the things he previewed, they need a lot of pens for today. Yes.
He said he planned to sign so many executive orders that his arm would be sore.
To me, I think y'all should just leave that alone. Y'all be fighting over
all those years ago.
It's
Now it's
politics
like-
fighting.
This crowd saying.
It's time for us to fighting and fight against what needs to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, by the numbers, if the president signs more than 22 executive actions today or orders, he will.
Right
will
now,
never nobody's-
California's burning up.
As we have seen here, you know, at this moment, you talk about the tone that the president has struck as he enters.
I would
office
be
here.
I would do this inauguration, sign the paper, do all that.
Here is
But
American
all this
economy.
extra stuff,
It is not a reinvention. It is
I'm like,
a remix. He
dude,
is doing.
we're gonna push it back for tomorrow. I got to make sure we're taking care of California.
Whether those who voted for him.
Natural disaster. Let's get this.
Yeah.
I'm ordering
Set to make
this and this to happen right now.
Well, when he talks about a mandate, he feels that he was very.
Let me standing there.
And that he received the popular vote, he received an overwhelming.
Bloating in his wind.
It was as clear as day what people were voting for.
That's
so
fine.
That is what for him,
You
the
deserve it.
mandate means.
You
He's
won.
making good on it, starting today.
And if you look at the polls, he has some of his highest poll
so much
numbers.
for being here.
Let's listen to Vice
But right
President.
now, this just tells me it's all talk.
That was a good
Yeah,
way
it's
to
just gonna
start
be
off,
them
you know, I didn't
talking
know
the whole
exactly
entire
what the
time, I
president
feel
put in
like.
that speech, and I
Where's the
I
action?
myself that he wasn't going to hold back, and sir, you didn't hold back. That was a hell of a way to start the next 4 years. But I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, and I know I speak for the president and for all of us, thank you, thank you, thank you for making this possible. We love you. We wouldn't be here without you, and we're going to make America great again together for the next 4 years. And the last thing I'll say is, you know, having stood outside for about 5 minutes to wave goodbye to the Bidens, thank God we moved that thing indoors because it was a beautiful ceremony and it was cold as hell outside. So, sir, the 45th and 47th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
No, he's right. I looked at this and oh, look at this beautiful sunny day. And we blew it. And then I went outside and we were freezing. You would have been very unhappy. The sun was very deceptive, I will tell you. It is cold out. And I'm sort of saying, you know, that was so beautiful today. Maybe they should do it there every 4 years. Does that make sense? I don't know. Because, you know, the outdoor thing is really good, but it gets a little cold around this time of the year. Some people have noticed. And a lot of times they suffer through it. There was no suffering in that room. It was 72 degrees. It was perfect with the best acoustics I think I've ever heard in a room. This is not so bad either. But I just want to say, you're a younger, far more beautiful audience that I just spoke to. And I want to keep it off the record. I want to keep that off the record because I don't want to have all those big shots up there. I don't want to think you're more powerful than them. You look better than them, and I love you. Now, we just had a great time. We just had a great day. This was amazing. You know, when you think we took a journey, I mentioned in the speech, a lot of people said that was not a journey that was possible, and it was indeed possible. I didn't really know too much about what they were saying when they said that, but a lot of people felt it. And we hooked up with JD very early. I watched JD over a period of time. I endorsed him in Ohio. He was a great senator and very, very smart. The only one smarter than him was his wife. That was, I would have chosen her, but somehow the line of succession didn't work that way, right? But now she's great and he's great. This is a great, beautiful couple and unbelievable career. I just said to him, you are very upwardly mobile, because he hasn't been doing it that long, but he picked it up so quickly. Remember the first week was a little bit like the fake news was hitting him really hard. And I said, oh, this may be tough, but after that, it was smooth sailing for him. He took on everybody. He took on the meanest. I don't want to use the word corrupt because we're into a new system, so let's wait till the corruption begins, because it will. But he took on some pretty mean people, and he handled it well. I want to also congratulate Mike Johnson for the job that he's doing. Steve, we gave him a majority of almost nothing, and then I said to make it tougher on him, let me take 2 or 3 of the people, right? I said, he'll only have to suffer with that for about 3 months. How are they doing, by the way? Are they, is that moving along? Sure. I said, do you mind if I take this one, that one, and a couple of others? He didn't mind, he can handle it. No, he's a man that's liked by everybody. I've never met a man like this. You've got how many is it, 219 or 220 or something? 220. And of the 220, 219 really like him. I noticed he got one negative vote once about 2 weeks ago. But I think even 220 like him, if you want to know the truth. And that's very unusual. I know a lot of nice guys in Congress, and they have 35 people that hate them. So if you have 35 people that hate you and you only have 1 or 2 or 3 votes, you'll have 5, I think. But that's going to be like, the good news is when we get to that 5 number, it's going to feel like a massive majority. You could be really nasty to a couple of them at least. Yeah? So it's going to feel like hitting your head on a wall and stopping. It feels so good to stop. But he's done a fantastic job. And Steve Scalise is, he's our hero because, I was with him. You talk about being shot. I was with him. He got some bad ones. And his
Gabrielle's here with the food.
She really loves him.
Okay.
You never know about that. I've been with other people that were doing poorly in the White
With my food anyway.
You know what? She can't get out of the hospital fast enough. How's he doing? I don't know. It's all right. That woman was a mess. She was crying and crying. No, they're going to take him. They're going to take him. I told Steve when he finally woke up, it was a while too. The doctor told me it was the most blood they've ever transfused in any patient. They've never done anything like it. And here is the picture of strength, right? And he's a great friend of mine. Right? With the family, because of the family. And what a job you did. It worked out pretty much better than we even thought, right? And I did have a couple of things, to say that were extremely controversial. And between JD and Melania and anybody else that had, please, sir.
Yeah.
It's such a beautiful, unified.
Freaking, you would think
please, sir, don't say
that,
I said, I'm telling you,
He's going
it's gonna play great.
again.
They say, you're
Okay.
right. For this group of people, it's gonna play good. You're the only ones I heard by that call, but we had some beauty that didn't even know. He said, sir, calls me sir,
So you
what you
put 'em
say?
in. Yeah.
No.
Substream.
No, I'm only kidding. I better say I'm only kidding, and the press is gonna pick that one up loud and clear. No, but you said, no, I think it's gonna be terrible. It's such a nice speech. I think it's, it all depends on your delivery. How was the delivery? Was it good?
yeah, Gabriella kind of sounds like, like a Hispanic name, but,
She's without. I saw her.
She can't put
Huh?
things in there.
She's
that
white.
you were gonna
no, she's not.
put in.
No,
She
And
was
I
it?
was
No,
going
she's
to talk
Indian.
about
Oh,
the
India.
J6.
That's in the
From India.
But you'll be happy
Mm.
because it's
not
action.
not the one
Not
that,
American
words that
Indian.
count.
not
And
yeah.
use
Not
them
Native
in
American.
action. On the J6 house.
like
I'll
Yeah,
let you-
like-
I'll let you know when the other one
about the
gets in.
things that you did today with the apartments of people that were very, very guilty
Yeah,
of
I-
very bad crimes. Like
we had 2 people watching. Now we're down to 1. It's cool. Not everybody
Where
is about
they
government and
literally what they
politics.
did is they destroyed and deleted all of the information.
But it is
all of the
history.
hearings.
It's a history lesson for y'all.
They deleted all
Your
of
young
the
ones,
Nancy Pelosi
your,
that turned down
the kids, the parents, the grandparents, and many more to set an example for what's to come in the near future.
You don't see those photographs. They don't put them in the people at the Capitol. But I was talking about that. I was going to talk about that. They said, please don't bring that up right there. You can bring it up tomorrow. I said, how about now in front of I'll bring it up right now. This little time delay is good because we're getting great reviews on this speech. You know what? They'll take this speech and say, I didn't like it because he left there and he talked to people. But we're giving you a little more information than we gave them. Says, no. They pardoned a lot of people. They pardoned, before we even get to today, they pardoned, 33 murderers, absolute murderers, the worst murderers. When you get the death sentence in the United States, you have to be bad. because they don't give it much. And he pardoned almost everybody having a death sentence. And if you went through the crimes that were committed, you wouldn't even believe them, the level of violence, the people that were killed, the innocence of people that were killed and children killed by these people. And he pardoned them for whatever reason. He spared them, and but they didn't spare the people that they killed. And who knows what happens in the future? It's one of the worst because a lot of times they let them out early after that. They say you can be in for life, but then all of a sudden they get let out for good behavior, and then they go on a rampage. It's one of those little things, right? But I was going to talk about that. But I was really going to talk about the level of what's going on. Why are we doing this? Why are we trying to help a guy like Millie? Why are we doing Millie? He was pardoned. What he said. Terrible what he said. Why are we helping some of the people? Why are we helping Liz Cheney? I mean, Liz Cheney is a disaster. She's a crying lunatic and crying Adam Kinzinger. He's a super crier. I never saw the guy not crying. He's always crying. I look at him. I remember years ago he was actually on my side. And then one day, when you don't want to kill people in wars, they turn against you. Liz Cheney hated the concept of not going to war with everybody. Let's kill everybody. Let's spend a lot of money on military equipment.
Well, I just
where
been
her
kind of
father
holding
works
it.
at. And but what she did was incredible. Think of it. They destroyed and deleted all of that information that went on for almost 2 years against Trump. And the reason they did, because it was all false. Like the person that said, I tried to strangle a Secret Service agent. That's one of the toughest human beings I think I've ever seen.
Here.
I actually had a friend say, please don't change that. So you are the coolest sucker in history. Remember, she said, I put my hands around his neck. And because he wouldn't go to the Capitol, made up fiction. And I was rebuffed. And the guy on the right is a massive weightlifter, probably stronger than me. Do you think he's stronger than me, honey? You know who I'm talking? Possibly stronger than me. Slightly younger than me, like, I won't say how many years because I don't want to talk about that, but a lot of years. But I had a friend that said, why are you disputing that story? That's the coolest story I've ever heard. That I would attack a karate champion, get slightly rebuffed, and then throw my arms around a guy with a neck about this big. Even though there are bars, there are bars, you can't really do that anyway. So I wanted to talk about that, but all of that stuff got deleted. And the reason it got deleted is there were Secret
We're
Service
loving it.
systems.
Not sponsored. Here. Hashtag
Actually,
not
the two
sponsored.
guys were pretty embarrassed. They're suffering because their friends are saying, did Trump really do that to you? But they gained a whole new respect for me. But it was just make-believe stuff. And there were a lot of make-believe
Sweet tea. Sweetie pie.
Like the story with Nancy Pelosi, over the 10,000 soldiers.
That looks good.
She knows it. She admitted it.
Enchiladas.
Her daughter made.
Yeah.
She's
The
a
soft
videographer or whatever you
So
call
good.
her. Which I'm glad she is. So
You don't eat that?
she can't be in good stead with
No,
Nancy.
I will.
Oh.
But Nancy said
I
it was
just gotta
my
mix all that up.
responsibility. As she's leaving the Capitol, she said it was her. I don't know if she's in
Pepper.
charge of security at the Capitol, but I offered them up to 10,000 soldiers, even more. One time I said more, as many as you need, but you needed
If
400,
I knew you would
500.
eat this,
Still
I would
500,
get over the
10,000
country.
would be more than the number of people there. A lot. But we
I like
offered them
enchiladas.
10,000. Think of it,
Okay, well, next
10,000
time I don't-
soldiers. In other words, J6 wouldn't be J6. There would have been no J6. But she rebuffed them. She didn't like it. No, she didn't like it. Maybe she wanted that to happen. But she
Pick
still
his
did
nose,
that.
pick his nose, pick his
And now
nose.
we
Pick
would
this
have to go
guy's
through the
nose.
process because they
Pick
destroyed
all their
the
noses.
evidence. They
So help
deleted
them know.
everything. There's virtually nothing.
Because
left. The other fake
nobody
story and some of the
knows
other fake stories.
how to
And many
make
people came
America
out on our
great.
side. And those people now.
What the hell are you talking about?
There's nothing left. So that's a criminal offense. If that were a civil case, it would be a criminal offense. If that happened civilly where you did that, it would be a criminal offense. So I decided I'm not going to make this speech complicated. I'm going to make it beautiful. I'm going to make it a unifying speech. And then when they said we have a group of people that are serious Trump fans, I said, this is the time to tell those stories. Yeah. But seriously, I like to, I think it was a tremendous success. I think we're very lucky we put it inside because it is really cold. We just went to the helicopter out of respect for something that's taken place for a long time. I guess it's as old as helicopters. You used to get into a stagecoach, now you get into a helicopter. Times changed. But it's pretty old custom. And it's a beautiful custom. It's a beautiful custom. I wish we could have had a better relationship. I wish we could have had a better relationship between Republicans and Democrats. I was with Senator Schumer. I said, Chuck, I think it's time we all start getting along a little bit because it doesn't make sense. I mean, we literally never get a Democrat vote. They never get a Republican vote almost. And there is a bill coming up very shortly that we have a lot of Democrat votes for. It's going to be a very beautiful bill, and then deciding, I would say.
What does this look like to you? It looks like.
And it's going to be a very good bill. You all know what I'm talking about. So I just want to thank you all for being our fans from day one. All these people all over. You've been our fans.
McDonald's has a new buyer.
I was just gonna hurry up.
This has been.
I got important
This has been a.
Yeah, we need to make this.
where it requires man not to be streaming.
Like no movement ever in history for probably
Let's
any
play
country.
great again.
I need to make
You know,
calls that
somebody's
require
running for president,
having my
and
private
if they
stuff.
go out,
Private.
and they announce they're going to Arizona, they're going to Nevada, they're going to someplace. If you have 200 or 300 people, that would be standard. Ronald Reagan would go out. I mean, outside of the last couple of days where people get a little excited, but even then you have a couple of thousand people. But if you're going to go someplace, any place, any one of the swing states, any one of the other states, I mean, how about the non-swing states? We won Alabama by 48 points. We won Tennessee by massive numbers. Wyoming, we won by numbers that are, nobody's ever seen that before. And, you know, places like California, we did great. When they send out like 38
Yeah,
million
right.
ballots, nobody knows where.
You didn't do California.
They come pouring back the whole thing. You know, they passed a law in California that if you work in an election bureau and if you so much as ask for a voter ID, if you say, sir, ma'am, could I please look at your voter ID? They have the right to put you in jail. You're a criminal. Can you believe that? There's only one reason that happens. They want to cheat. So they had it where voter ID wasn't accepted. But now if you even ask for, this is seriously a bill that was just signed. You passed it in their legislature and it was signed. And I think when we get things cleaned up and we get back to a little bit of normalcy, I'm going to ask the speaker to really get involved because I think we would have won the state of California because, you know, if you look at my numbers with Hispanic, we're 56%. And we were winning, we won the Texas border that had never been won, as the governor said, he's doing a good job, the governor, by the way, of Texas. But as the governor said, it hasn't, oh, did I get lucky? Did I get lucky? Supposing I said, you know, he's not here, but the governor of Texas has done a terrible job. Wow, look at you. You mean we couldn't get you up in the front row? I tell you. Supposing I said, JD, the governor of Texas, is not doing his job. You heard what I said? See, I didn't know you were there. I said he's doing a great job. He's doing a phenomenal job. But now you're going to have a partner that's going to work with you because you didn't have. Not only did he have a partner, he had people selling you oil, right? We have a fence structure that we worked on. The governor worked on with me. And I didn't love it, to be honest with you. I wanted a nice precast concrete, you know, 40, 50 feet high, like a beautiful, could have been a T-shape, Y-shape. I love construction. I wanted that sucker to go up maybe 50, 60 feet. It would have looked beautiful, a nice Y shape. And they said, the problem is, sir, they climbed that like a rabbit. I said, what do you mean? No way. And they brought some of these guys out. They climbed it like. And the other thing is you hit it with acid and the thing will disintegrate. You know, they have things for concrete. So they needed very hardened steel, very special steel. And then they needed 7,000-pound concrete inside that steel, And then they have a rebar that's the toughest steel made. very hard to cut. So this is why very little is cut, and it's right. And then they put an anti-climb panel on top. I hated it. I said, it's so unattractive. And I said, why would that work? I don't believe it works. And I went to watch the Border Patrol, gave a display. We had actually two sets of climbers. The guys that climb up walls with drugs on their back, I mean, they got like 60, 70 pounds of drug, and they go as fast as you can walk. They go bip, bip, bip. Or we have Mount Everest type climbers. And honestly, the drug guys were much better. The drug guys blew them away, right? But it's true, the anti-climb panel, they couldn't get around it. They just couldn't, you didn't have it. So sometimes you sacrifice beauty for efficiency. And we did, so we built this wall, and we built over 500 miles of wall. That's why we had such good numbers. The famous chart that came down, very thankfully, the chart that came down on my right, Governor. Had I not looked over there, I'm not speaking right now. You might be speaking there. You want to know the truth? You, JD, and got a lot of great people in this party, but I got very lucky, but we had the best numbers we've ever had. But I thought, what happens is when you fill it up, it's like water. You fill it up. Now we have 571 miles of wall. And they would always say, when we renovated a wall, so there'd be like a piece of plywood sitting there for 60 years, or a 2x4 sitting for 60 years on the ground and rotting. Because, and they'll say, you didn't build a new wall. Here we're building 50 feet up in the air and 30 feet sections, 50-foot sections, steel, concrete, everything. And by the way, they don't even want me to say this, but what the hell, doesn't take that long time. They're all wired for all of the equipment. We put wires in everything so they could easily wire for all the different types of equipment. If there's a doubt, we have a wire. Whenever we just look, you just find the wires all over the place up top, so we can just hook it up. We don't have to have wires on the outside, which wouldn't do too well, right? So anyway, we built an extra 200 miles of wall, and the governor wanted to buy it. We tried to buy it, and they wouldn't sell it to him. He wanted to put it up himself. Could have been done in 3 to 4 weeks, 200 more miles, because when you do it now, they just keep going further out, getting around. So we did an extra 200 miles, and it was all bought. And they announced that they're not going to put it out. And that's when I realized they wanted open borders, and that's when I realized that people are going to come pouring through the wall like nobody's ever seen before. But you've seen it. A lot of you are here because of that. I made it my number one issue. They all said inflation was the number one issue. I said I disagree. I think people coming into our country from prisons and from mental institutions is a bigger issue for the people that I know. And I made it my number one. I talked about inflation too, but how many times can you say that an apple has doubled in cost? I'd say it and I'd hit it hard, but then I go back to the fact that we don't want criminals coming into our country. We don't want the jails of every country in the world virtually being deposited into the United States. And that man had to suffer with it. And he did an unbelievable job. I'll tell you, he was a very popular governor, but now he's like an unbeatable governor because of your border policies. He was fantastic. And he really was. Governor Abbott, he's a great man, a great leader. And, but it did make him very, you didn't do that for politics. You did it because you did the right thing. But I'll tell you, it sure as hell worked for politics too. It's self-preservation. Yeah, because the people are demanding it. The people of Texas are demanding it. The people are demanding it all over. So we built it, and they wouldn't let us use it. They wouldn't let the governor use it, and other governors, they wouldn't let him use it. But he was the leader of the pack and did a great job. And then we heard about a month ago that not only wouldn't they let it use it, they were selling it. They were going to sell it for 5 cents on the dollar. Now, 5 cents on the dollar then, but today it would cost more than twice as much to build because we bought it like 6 years ago. And it was just sitting on the ground, and that does not do well for the whole thing. But it was just sitting on the ground, and I heard about it, and I called the governor, and I called a lot of people, your attorney general. And here's the story. They were going to buy it, and these are great business people. They were going to buy it for 5 cents on the dollar or less. And they were calling us up. We'll sell it to you for 200 cents on the dollar. In other words, it will cost you twice as much, so it's 200 cents on the dollar. I said, can somebody explain that to a judge? I mean, how corrupt is that? You'd think they'd say maybe we'll sell it to you for 20 cents, 30 cents, but not 200 cents. So they were going to buy something for 5 cents and they were going to sell it to us for a fortune. We're going to make it be, they have it down in Fortune magazine, they put it as the deal of the year, okay? You buy something like that, but it was so corrupt and so horrible. And when we told that to the administration, they didn't care. They just kept going forward. They couldn't care less. And they kept going forward. They knew that they were trying to sell it back to us. They would have sold it back to us. You would have ended up buying it. You would have paid probably 50, 60 cents. Who knows? But they would use it for scrap metal, but then they made a much better deal. They could just buy it and sell it to us for 15, 20 times what they paid. 20 times, think of it, like 20 times what they paid. And we wouldn't let it happen. The governor with his attorney general, Ken Paxton, he made a fantastic, very good lawyer. He's pushing out pretty good by people, right? They said, you got a great attorney general. They should leave him alone. He was with me. But Ken and the governor went to court, and a judge actually became incensed and actually called for an investigation. How could a thing like this happen? So he stopped it. So we're waiting to put that wall up. And now that you have a new president, that wall will go up so fast. The governor will complain, sir. This is Greg Abbott, sir. Please, the wall is going up too fast. Please don't do that. You know the story about winning. No, we're going to win too much. We're winning too much. Please, people always love that one. We'll do this with the wall. Governor Abbott calls, sir, the wall is going up too fast. We can't take it. We just can't take it. No, I think you'll be very happy if the wall goes up too fast, right? But we'll get that dude and we'll work with you on that. But it was a great decision by a great Texas judge, right? And it was beautiful, beautiful to watch. We stopped them right in their track. I mean, they were literally loading this stuff on their trucks. It was terrible. Honestly, it was terrible. And he wouldn't take it. So I'm so glad I mentioned that they have a really good governor in Texas. Now, and I swear I didn't know he was here. I swear to you, it sounds like a setup. I didn't know you were there. Did I get lucky? I said the right thing. Because there would have been moments when I wasn't so happy with him, you know? But not too many, I can tell you that. So anyway, it's good to see you too, Governor. Great. But I just want to thank everybody. You've been incredible. I recognize so many of you. It's so crazy. But this has been a long journey. This was a journey that started in 2015, probably started 20 years before that. People used to say, you're going to run for president? You're going to run? And I always said, no, I don't want. And then one day I said, let's give it a shot. And what I talked about then was the border too. I think it probably was the number one issue for me. Back in 2015, 2016, I talked about the border. And now I talked about the border, but this border is much worse. We fixed the border. It was totally fixed. There was nothing to talk about. 2020, by the way, that election was totally rigged, but that's okay. It was a rigged election. You know, the only thing good about it, it showed how bad they are, it showed how incompetent, and frankly, historically, this is a much bigger event. If that would have gone like it should have. The bad thing about it is some bad things happened, like a lot of people in our country that wouldn't be in our country right now. So, you know, that's the bad part. But I will say that it started in 2015, and right from the beginning, when we went to the top, day one, they announced Trump, and Trump went to number one and stayed there for the whole primary. And then we took on Hillary. She didn't look too happy today. We took on Hillary. A very nice person. But we took on Hillary and we defeated Hillary, and we did much better the second time in 2020. You know, we got millions more votes. We got millions, like 10, 12 million more votes than we did the first time. No president has ever gotten that many more votes. I got like 9 million more than anybody else had ever gotten. And they said we lost. And because of that, I said to Melania, what do you think? And she said, you want to do this again? And had we lost, and had I felt we lost, I wouldn't do it again, because that's like the ultimate poll, right? But I knew how well we did, and this time we made it too big to rig. It was so big. They tried like hell. But They tried to do it, and around 9:02, they gave up. Last time they did bad things, this time they just said, yes. You know, I don't know if you saw Mr. Speaker in Washington, they had placards, they were all set to march. They thought it'd be closer. A gentleman asked me, a very respected gentleman asked me yesterday, how come the polls were so wrong? They showed you winning, but not in a landslide. I said, because people that are true Trumpers are so angry at the whole polling system and at the writers, the fake news, that they don't want to talk to anybody. So when you call somebody from Trump, who are you voting for? They say, it's none of your business. I'm not telling you. And that was probably 40% of the people they called. So they would discard that one, and they didn't show that. And then when the election happened, you know, the vote came, and it was much different, much higher than we're going to win. But they really thought, they couldn't believe the one man said, I mean, it was so much higher. We won all 7 swing states. We won the popular vote by millions of votes, which is hard for a Republican. I'll tell you who came through. The unions came through. The auto workers were great. The Teamsters were great. The firemen were great. I think almost every union was great. The only one that weren't great, although Sean was great, and the Teamsters, Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters, was fantastic. But generally speaking, the head of the union was against Trump, but the union would be with us for like 85%. Look what we did with the auto workers in Michigan. Look what we did with the Teamsters. The Teamsters were unbelievable. They were a solid Democrat vote, and they voted for Trump. So we had a great experience. This has been, now we have to go to work and get it done because we have to do something that's going to be great. We're going to turn our country around, and we're going to turn it around. And I think this was a better speech than the one I made upstairs, okay? I think this was better, JD. I think this was much better, and I got to see my friend. So, Governor, take care of yourself. You call me, we'll start working. You know what that means with him? He's going to be calling me tomorrow morning at about 6. I said, how about next week? You call me, we're going to get it started real fast. We'll really help you a lot. You've done a fantastic job protecting something which is, it's not supposed to be for the states. And amazing job you've done. Thank you very much. And I want to thank everybody. And I have a first lady who's been incredible. I shouldn't say this. I'm going to get hell when I say this, but her feet are absolutely aching. You know, those heels. And we thought we were leaving. We were going home. Sir, would you be able to go down and say hello to some of your other fans that are here? I said, oh, I didn't know that. Wow. Did you get to see pretty clearly the picture, I hope? Good. That's good. But because you wouldn't want to make the same speech again, right? But she said, darling, I love you so much, but my feet are killing me. I said, honey, let me just see how far does I ask the person. Oh, not that long, maybe 400 or 500 yards. That's 5 football fields. I said, can you make it? She said, we're going to make it no matter what. We're going to make it because we have to go, right? And then we went out to the helicopter that just started this and said goodbye. And I said, and the wind is blowing like crazy. With the hat that she's wearing, she almost blew away. We almost lost her. She was being elevated off the ground. She almost blew away. No. So we all appreciate it because you've been a great first lady. Beautiful and a great first lady. And they love our first lady. You know, JD, whenever I make a speech, I see hundreds of times, we love our first lady. And they do, and they should. She's great. So I just want to thank you. Thank you very much. I just want to thank everybody. And I felt that I said to JD, should we give them the A treatment, the B treatment, the C, the D, or the F? You know what the F is? Hello, everybody. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye. I gave you the A+ treatment. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
And it just got the A+.
Right, that was President Trump's remarks to the overflow room, and I believe longer than his inaugural address. And definitely had that rally feel. It was riffing and feeling the moment as he went through some of the greatest hits that he tends to hit in a rally speech.
Absolutely. It's the difference between scripted President Trump and unscripted President Trump. And we're quite familiar with him. He ticked through some of his biggest applause lines from his rally speeches. He was speaking to a very different audience. He's speaking to some of his most fervent supporters there. He made that very clear. He did say some things, again, falsely claimed the 2020 election was stolen, but talked about the mandate that we have been talking here about, the fact that he won the popular vote and the electoral college, won all of the swing states. And clearly that's a thing that he'll be leaning into.
Let me bring in someone who was at the swearing-in ceremony today, former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Mr. Speaker, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
The president has laid out a lot of ideas, some executive orders, some big sweeping policy ideas. How many of those, I mean, realistically, listen to them, how many of them are more aspirational than doable?
What he listed now, I think, are most of them all doable and achievable. And remember, this is the difference. He's already done the job before. He's been out of office, focusing greater. Now he's coming back. He's not going to wait for some staffer to tell him how to do it. He also feels as though he allowed people to slow them down. Certain things he wanted to do first, they said, no, do that later, and he didn't get around to it. So he's not going to waste any time. Think about how quick he put his cabinet together, faster than before. He's get some confirmed today. He's got a majority on both sides that he knows in 2 years from now, it's hard to keep the House. You usually have a 9-month honeymoon. You've got a reconciliation. It's tough. They decide 1 or 2 bills. That really only matters how big do they make these. So when he talks about the border being a disaster, that's a way that he can take care of the border without maybe doing a bill. So that makes it easier that you don't have to do the 2 bills. But he will push this Congress more than this Congress knows they'll want to be.
You know, to say some things he can do by executive order, but to really make an impact, you do have to pass legislation. And here in the House, and you know, nobody could probably count heads better than sitting at this table. I mean, he's got a 1-seat majority in the House.
It gets worse, right? Because, okay, now it's going to drop by 2 seats because you're going to have Elise and Mike Waltz go in. Those Florida seats won't get filled till April 1st. The New York seat won't get filled till later. So it's going to be very difficult. And this is the first time in modern history the majority in the Senate is larger than in the House. That's a big deal.
What happens when, with the next time there's a challenge for the leadership, the speaker leadership? What happens?
Nothing. Gates is gone. It was all about an ethics report he didn't want to come out.
Matt Gaetz.
Yeah, Matt Gaetz. Don't sleep with 17-year-olds. We'll be okay.
Oh, gosh, well, we know that Kevin McCarthy and Matt Gaetz, there's no love lost there.
Well, no, there's nothing about it. If you read the ethics report, that's exactly what transpired. He put the motion to vacate in the same day on October 2nd that he put it in. He came to me to try to make me influence him, and I wouldn't influence it. That's all there is.
Can you speak to the urgency, because he has 4 years in office? What does that really mean in real terms in terms of how much time he has to get his agenda passed?
Well, the difficulty here on any presidency, and when it gets towards the end, you're less powerful or less able to get through. He has a House and a Senate with a small majority. You've got a tax bill out there. You've got reconciliation, so you can deal with that. You've got executive powers, but they don't last forever. This is a man that wants to leave a legacy. This is a man who knows the job. This is a man that doesn't get a lot of sleep, and he will push people to make things happen. So I think he's going to be rather productive these first 9 months.
One of the things he just mentioned, and he's alluded to it 1,000 times, and it seems intent to do it, which is pardoning some of those who have been convicted in connection with January 6th. You were there on January 6th. You were quite disappointed in the president's actions that day. What do you think if he pardons some of these people?
The president has the power to do that. This is the difference.
No question about it.
Okay, but this president told the American public why he was campaigning for office. If I'm elected president, I will pardon these people. Now, but compare this to Joe Biden, who said he would never pardon his son, who's now on the very last day, in the last 30 minutes, pardons his entire family.
What do you make of that decision for him to make those pardons and to do it now?
Terrible, terrible. Think about what everybody else had gone through. Why pardon your family? What it makes no sense to me. Why pardon January 6th from the idea of the elected officials? All it does is put a cloud over that you did something wrong. These people didn't ask for it, but you must know something that other people do not. And why do you wait to 30 minutes before? Why did you tell the American public you would never pardon your son and you do it? Now, the difference here is whether you agree or disagree about what President Trump's going to do. He told the American public ahead of time. They put that into consideration whether they vote for him for president. So he's just keeping a campaign promise.
There's no question. I mean, he was as clear as day about what he was going to do, and now he's going to do it. I just wondered for you, as somebody.
I don't think he's not going to do it. From what I know of it, it doesn't seem like it's going to be a blanket pardon. There's some people that have been sitting in there that I don't believe have been given their justice. They've just been sitting in there. I don't think that's right.
Is retribution still on the table for this new president?
See, this is the thing that bothers me the most. For the people who are opposed to President Trump, all they talk about is retribution. I have not seen him put retribution into anybody when he has had the power.
But he's talked about it.
But he's talked about it, but I've only seen the other side do retribution to him and everybody else. I will tell you this. 4 years ago, when President Trump left office, everybody who worked for him got blackballed, that nobody could be hired, that nobody could work any place. And then everybody had to go through attorneys. Everybody was getting prosecuted. Everybody was being looked at. President Trump had to go through it. And what the Democrats did to President Trump, they helped elect him by prosecuting, because what they misread with the American public, when they would prosecute him for something they would never anybody else in America, that's when you literally felt across America, this is wrong.
And yet, Mr. Speaker, the president has put in place or hopes to put in place somebody like Kash Patel to lead the FBI, somebody who has made a list of people he decries as deep state individuals. Critics call it this enemies list. You heard Pam Bondi, who he wants to be his next attorney general, get questioned about this. How do you square that, what you're talking about here with the actions that the president's
But what I listen to, too, is that they would follow the rule of law, that they wouldn't put...
Do you believe Kash Patel would do so if he was?
I do believe so, because I know Kash Patel. And, you know, it's an interesting thing. I've watched people sit back and say, I want to go after you because you say you might do something in the future. We live in America, right? You're innocent, proven guilty, but now they're going after this. They will uphold the rule of law. But they saw the other side of this, that people using prosecution against them that wasn't right. I think they'll be more apt not to use it.
I mean, we don't have time to get into all the things. We talk about upholding the rule of law. I mean, there was a prosecution, for example, in Florida for mishandling classified documents that seemed to be as clear as day. I mean, pursuing a prosecution under those circumstances is not an abuse of the rule of law. It's a pursuant of the vindication of the rule of law.
Okay, but this is all fair too. Okay, that was on President Trump. But at the same moment you're saying that, you had a President Joe Biden that had the documents inside